Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to our Conversations on Care, our Facebook talk show, bringing together our healthcare partners, our clients, our caregivers, in the spirit to help families better understand and cope with aging parents with chronic care needs. My name is Julie Collada, and I'm the founder and president of Open Arms Solutions. And Open Arms is a home care agency serving the Chicagoland area focused on inspired home care solutions for seniors with chronic conditions such as dementia, stroke, Parkinson's, and other movement disorders. It's our mission to help our families through their journey and to know that their loved one is living their best life possible. If you find these dialogues helpful, please like us on Facebook and share this program so that it can reach more people who need it. We've been on Facebook doing this program for a year and a half, and it's amazing how our audience has grown. So thank you to everybody who has been liking us and sharing us. If you have questions about additional topics you'd like to learn more about, write them in the comment sections. That would be terrific, and we'll do our best to get it on a future program. With me today is Nancy Tuzzolino of Tuzzolino Enterprises to discuss the benefits of having a geriatric care manager on your family's team. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
Hi. Hello. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for inviting me today.
You're very welcome. This is such an important topic. So excited to get into our conversation and talk about geriatric care management. Before we do that, I mean, you and I have known each other a long time, and we were just going down memory lane a little bit before we went live. Tell everyone who's watching a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start your practice, your geriatric care practice.
Okay. Well, I am a local girl. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and most of my family still remains here. I was a graduate of University of Illinois at Chicago. I was a business major, so I have an MBA, and found the early part of my career in consulting, doing organization development consulting, human resource consulting. And later, when I came to a crossroads in my own life where I was starting to kind of reevaluate what is it I want to do, where do I want to take my skills, and my personal life kind of converged because my dad was very sick at the time. He had cancer, and I had found myself having to take on increasing responsibilities with him and have to support myself and figure out my own life. And what ended up happening was he was really the inspiration for me to get into care management. Now, many years ago, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. As a family member, oftentimes, we get into these situations and we don't realize that we are acting as an advocate for our loved ones. So I ended up being able to leverage that into a professional career and ultimately a business practice.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it is amazing that people who are in this line of work supporting seniors have stories like that. I had a story like that. Those of us that are not clinical, that we're not nurses, we're not social workers, like you, I was a business person, and was put in a situation that I needed to care for my mom. And then you start to discover the world of senior care and, what families go through and what kind of support they need. And so thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So Nancy, let's just start at the basics, because I'm imagining there's a lot of people listening right now. When we say, when they may have never even heard the term geriatric care manager or care manager. So what is a geriatric care manager or a care manager?
What I do is assist with a variety of different things for seniors who are having to navigate life many times by themselves. So there's some key components to that. A big part of what I do with my clients is care coordination and healthcare coordination, healthcare management. As most of you are aware, as we get older, we have more and more healthcare complications. Things happen, you end up in the hospital, maybe rehab. There's a lot to navigate in the healthcare system. And if an older person doesn't have a family member, then they need really somebody to stand by their side and be that advocate for them and to shepherd them through that journey, because it is often very, very winding, and you're putting your faith into a lot of outside people, and you need one person on your team and on your side that can navigate that with you. So that's a very large part of what I do in my practice. But then there's everything else. There are things on the day-to-day basis with just helping manage daily affairs for somebody. They're opening mail, reviewing bills, making sure people get paid. And then also the other things, a client needs a new pair of glasses. Okay, let's go to the store, and we have to sit down and order them. Then somebody has to pick them up. And all of those activities of daily living that really kind of fall outside the, making a meal, the things that you will do in your practice, Julie, with caregivers, managing those types of activities. But a lot of ancillary other things are the kinds of things that I get involved with my clients, that really there's no particular person there to take care of them.
Yeah, and that's a really it's a great overview of what geriatric care managers do. I know that as I've talked to people over the years, there's one particular geriatric care manager. She said, you know what, I am really a professional adult daughter. And
Exactly.
I travel around with toilet paper in my trunk. And I thought that was a really, just an interesting way to describe part of what, being a geriatric care manager is. It is someone like yourself that has a lot of expertise. Sometimes geriatric care managers like yourselves are professionals with varying experience and personal experience, that are able to communicate clearly and navigate, as you said, and navigate such a good word, because it's navigate all the challenges that come up when a senior is confronted with healthcare challenges. And geriatric care managers can also be nurses. They can also be social workers.
Yes.
They might have a background in gerontology. There's people arrive at this profession, and then they bring their varying levels of expertise when they consult with families. It's an incredibly, from my experience, it's an incredibly important, valuable service. And is there, you mentioned something, and I just want to pick up on this. I mean, first of all, I think about myself right now, right? And I have a primary care physician. But even when tests are ordered, I don't always, sometimes we don't always ask the questions in terms of why things are being done. That's often, I think, the case, right? And you think about seniors, or you think about families that are supporting seniors. We don't always ask why. We often just listen to what our healthcare professionals are saying is needed. And often, that's the right, they're professionals, and they have good intention, and they're trying to do their best for people. But, I know when I have conversations with people, they don't often know why certain things are being done. And then you take it to, do you find that? Do you find yourself in that situation when you're talking to your clients that they just, they're just being guided, and you use the word advocacy. Is that what you mean by advocacy?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, to that point, I could say that it is kind of scary that many times, especially medications, this comes up all the time when you're starting a new case and you're going over medications the client is taking. And more often than not, they don't really know why they're taking the medicine. And so they just kind of go through the motions, and they forget, well, this is here for a reason. And if you don't take it at a certain time, or, you insist on organizing your pill, just taking them right out of the pill bottles, you're probably going to be forgetting a lot of stuff. So they just get caught up in, you're right, kind of in a robot sense. Okay, doctor says I have to do this, but I'm not going to explore the why of that, and I'm not going to really process that, or maybe I can't process that. Right. It's just too much information. Right. I mean, I'm a care manager, and I get overwhelmed with everything, and I take notes, and I'm very thorough in managing the detail. But the average person I'm working with, who's 80 something years old, not so much. So, and then family members who are responsible are probably more, tuned into the why and understanding, what is happening with the various healthcare requirements that are going on. So that's helpful. It really is helpful for an older person, doesn't matter who they are, to have somebody who has a certain skill set and is able to process things and help them understand things at the pace that they can take that information in. Because you could tell the same thing to an older person many times, and they still may not get it the first, the fifth, the 10th time. You have to keep reviewing it and going over, and that's part of the job.
It can be very complicated. Some of seniors with multiple chronic conditions can be on how many medications is your experience, Nancy?
The average older person, how many medications are they on? 10 easily.
So you just think about that. I'm overwhelmed right now, just thinking about that. I know when we go into a family's home and we do an assessment, and you start to see things like that, well, of course they need someone to guide them. Anyone would, Right. I know if I don't take that many medications, but if I did, I would want my husband to be involved in those conversations, because that's a lot of information. That's a lot of medications to manage. And what often happens, and I'm sure you see this all the time, is people get hospitalized, and then they get discharged from the hospital, and there's changes to those medications, right?
Oh, that's it's a very frustrating process. As you work longer, many years into this business, you really understand the lack of coordination that there is in the healthcare system in general. People get turned loose from the hospital, from rehab. They're sent home with, pages and pages of instructions that, if they were by themselves, they would be expected to follow up on. Well, that's nearly impossible. So the expectations and how those things are managed outside of the care setting, it's really abysmal. Yeah. And it's disheartening when people don't have that support, because they're just going to land right back into a crisis situation.
Agreed. Completely agree. There's a couple of viewer questions. So let's get to one. Can you describe a time when you struggle to communicate something to either your clients or a member of their care team? How did you manage to get your message across to them?
Well, I guess, I think that I have found myself in those types of situations sometimes when there is a decision to be made about somebody, the longer term plan for somebody, and a lot of times that involves the level of care and where they're getting the care. For that person, and so sometimes there's disagreements even among family members about how to manage mom's care. Can we keep her at home? Should she live with me? Should she, there's all of these various things happening. And I don't know that I have the answer, the silver bullet here for this, but I think that you have to present to people options and the pros and cons to each. And so often that will come in, like if somebody really is seriously consider keeping their loved one at home, you have that conversation. It isn't necessarily going to be cheaper, and there's going to be a price to pay personally for you as the family member, to consider that kind of thing. So it really is a process of back and forth open dialogue, and you hope that at some point something you say will cause the light bulb to go on for the person. But there's no formula there. It's just a matter of presenting the facts, the pros and cons, and then you see where things sort out for people.
Yeah.
And things, as a care manager, I may know what I would do, and if it was my mom, what I would do, but I have to resist the urge to imprint my own personal value system on other people. That's difficult. That's probably one of the most difficult things of this job for me personally.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. I mean, these are all very personal decisions. And so many of us in this field really advocate for having conversations with family early and, making decisions before there's a crisis. All too often, we're first engaging with families when there's a crisis. And so you have, you're meeting with, in this example that you gave, many different family members that may have very different views about what the right thing is for, in this example, mom or dad. And that makes it very challenging. I think I have found, and I'm sure you have too, Nancy, but having an empathetic ear and letting families know that you really understand their challenge is just so important. Families, when their loved one, when they're being faced with these questions, it's probably triggered by some event, and it can be incredibly stressful for people. So the whole ability to communicate clearly, in my experience, and I'm imagining your experience, it all starts with letting family knows that we really understand how challenging this time is. Mm-hmm. And we're here to help and listen and try to solve together, right?
Right.
How typically do your engagements with families start? How do people hear about you?
Most of my cases end up coming through other professional resources. So that could be, I meet people at all different points in their journey. Many times they're already transitioned into some kind of senior living situation. And within the context of that, they're struggling. And staff become aware, because they're seeing them on a daily basis, they become aware of their deficiencies, or the seniors reaching out and saying, I need help with this. And who can you get to help me with this? And then I'll get that phone call. Can you go and meet with this person? I think that they could really use the help of a care manager. And so that's where a lot of those conversations start. Or family members who, now in the world we live in, you can go on the internet, you can go seek out resource finders, for example, like an ElderWorks. They're here in the local community. They're a free resource to families, and they get involved in conversations with people who find them online, and then that leads to sometimes a referral back to me. So then I'll talk directly to a family member through that connection.
So ElderWorks is great. And just for people who may not, we've had ElderWorks, different team members from ElderWorks on our program. They're a referral service. They do many different things, right? But people find, when they're seeking answers and they need help in senior care, they often reach out to ElderWorks, who has all sorts of information on different senior communities and organizations like Open Arms, who can help and come into the home, as well as care managers. Yeah.
Right.
That was actually one of the viewer questions that we haven't gotten to yet, which is, what are the best resources to find a care manager? So we're talking about some of them right now, right? Those referral sources. Are there other ways people can find care managers?
There is a National Association for Professional Geriatric Care Managers. They renamed themselves, and I think they're based in Arizona, actually. But if your audience was to search for professional geriatric care managers, they might come up with the association, or we could do a follow-up and I can look up the name of the organization. And we can pass it along later.
Yeah, we can pass along. In fact, I'm just it used to be Midwest Geriatric Care Management, because there's a local chapter, and
right.
Now I cannot remember the new name, so I apologize.
Right, it's a much simpler name. I remember that. It used to be a very long name.
Yes.
But that's probably a good way to start, because they have a national presence, and so they have a database that you can probably look up by zip code, and take a look there. The other way, I've talked to people about, contact your local senior center. Sometimes they'll have a line into professional resources in the area, including geriatric care managers, maybe the local hospital, although it's a little harder to connect to case management in a large institution like that. But they often keep lists, resource lists for their patients, so that they can help them in discharge planning. Or, like I said, if you, have a resource for a business like ElderWorks, there are other, I think Care Navigators is another, larger professional outfit. They may also have a line into care managers in the local area.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing all that. So how does your engagement with the family start? How do you assess what's needed?
I usually like to, so first off, in my practice, I do offer free consultation. Usually that happens on the phone, so that we can get a feel for what the case involves and what the key issues are. If it looks like it's a good fit, or there's an interest in moving to the second step, I will often go to the person's home where they're living currently, because as you know, you can learn a lot about a person, even a very short amount of time, by where they're living and how they're living. You're able to kind of see where things aren't working, and that could be just in how clean the place is, how you find the person themselves in terms of their personal appearance, and talking with them gets a sense of their cognitive status. And so then you just start asking. You ask questions. You ask about, what's your day like? Where do you find that you're needing help? How much help are you needing? Have you had any recent health issues that I should be aware of? And what kind of medicine are you taking? How do you manage your medication? So you start to kind of interview the person, and you start to learn very, very quickly where their needs may be. And then we focus on where people are at the time that I meet them, because not everybody is ready to hear the conversation about you need to move out of here and move to a senior community. They're not going to want to hear that on the first meeting, especially if they've been where they are for a long time. Mm-hmm. So you have to build trust. You have to give it time and allow that person to let you in, because without some trust, it's going to be very difficult to help that person over the longer haul. So that's what I do. It's not a formal process. It's more of a feel for me in what I do, but it has certain elements to it, addressing the healthcare, the environment, and the emotional, social aspects of what's happening with that person. So those are the kinds of questions I ask in trying to get to know them initially.
Sounds great. Can you give an example, obviously without mentioning names, of some people you've helped?
Yeah, certainly. So just recently started working on a case in January. It came to me as a referral from a senior community, from the executive director. This woman retired, not 80 yet. She's okay physically, but she was struggling managing her daily affairs. And so I went to meet with her in her apartment and walked in the door. Right away, I'm seeing bags of garbage over here. I'm seeing piles of things over there. I'm seeing a dresser filled with pill bottles and stray pills on the dresser. That's in the first 3 minutes I'm there. I'm witnessing all of this. And then we start to engage and interact in what's happening. And so as we are just involved in conversation and I'm starting to open mail and I'm starting to organize things, that client is sharing things that are happening with her. She's volunteering information about her history, about how things have worked for her over the last couple of years. And so that's how that started with that case. And so as I started working with her on one thing, which was we got to get out from under the paper jungle, now I've transitioned into, okay, we have to look at a better way to manage your medications, because if you're not taking your medications, I can tell there's a bottle here from a year ago that's full of a medication you're supposed to take regularly. So this is telling me you're not taking these as you should. Yeah. So we again kind of gently go, take step by step, and try not to intimidate, because this is very overwhelming and could be very easy for somebody to get spooked and say, okay, I don't want you to help me because you're a little too aggressive. So we navigate it very carefully, step by step by step. Yeah. So I think at some point with this client, in the not too distant future, I will be going to doctor appointments with her, because she's not managing the follow-up. She's not planning tests. She's not planning follow-up appointments. So there's a lot of things now that I've opened various doors and we're moving the relationship forward.
That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. I told you this would go fast, and we're almost out of time here, but I think, do you have experience where family members call you? Like maybe they're out of town and mom's in a different state and they really need to have a local advocate? Does that happen?
Oh, yeah, all the time. This is a very a chronic situation where people move away and their loved ones still live here, and they do need that representation here of somebody locally who can handle everything that comes up so that they don't have to jump on a plane if a crisis comes up. So over the years, I've handled quite a few cases like that. And it is very valuable in those situations to have a local professional presence that a family member can count on.
That's often where when people have decided they want to stay in their home and the whole family supports that, and they've hired a company like Open Arms, when we are involved with the family and we realize there's not anyone to be able to be local, we often recommend a geriatric care manager if they haven't already thought of it, because it's just it's so stressful for family members when there's no one local. And quite frankly, it helps us take care of that individual when we know that there's someone that's kind of on a professional level, is an advocate and overseeing the care, overall alongside of what we do at Open Arms. So I know that that's an important part of what you do and geriatric care managers do.
Yes.
So why don't you, because we only have a few minutes left, just explain who pays for these services and what does that look like?
My services are private, pay out of pocket services. I charge on an hourly basis. I think that's pretty standard in this industry.
Yes.
You're going to find a variety of, range of price per hour for services like these. The more credentialed a person is in this industry, probably the higher their billable rate is going to be, maybe upwards of 125 to 150 an hour. My fees are not at that level. They're a little lower. So but it's money well spent for people, particularly because you are laser focused on particular types of things that are critical to that person's, health and success in the world. So when I look at it like that, it's very money well spent for the senior.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I live this every day and see, the toll on seniors and their families when there's, medication management errors and falls and things that could have been prevented. Had there been some additional, advice and oversight. So I know the work that you do is really very important. We're out of time, Nancy.
Well, this was a blast. Thank you.
It's really great to see you again. We haven't really seen each other for so long. We were trying to figure out how long. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for being a guest. Nancy's contact information is in the chat area, so you know how to reach her. If you know of a family member that's in need, or a senior, excuse me, that's in need, please reach out to Nancy.
Thank you.
All right. Take good care, everybody. Stay safe. Be well.